Okay, guys, here we are back in the channel. Today we have a special guest here. We've been going back for a little bit, but no, it's a solid guy. We've been talking for a while. We have Jason Janda here with me as a as a like to call him the Wisconsin guy, but he's pretty much all in the Midwest, so pretty solid, pretty experienced operator in the space. So I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So Jason, let's touch a little bit on how did you start in this space? On this space, what's your background a little bit? What's your story?
Sure, the quick synopsis is I was a real estate broker in California. This was right around the great financial crisis. I was a recently admitted lawyer and I was working in real estate private equity, and there just wasn't a lot to buy. My pay was based on getting acquisitions done, and when there wasn't a
Mhm.
lot to buy, you're not getting paid all that much. And so I realized, hey, one of these days I got to get more on the ownership side than on the brokerage side. And
Mm.
so long circuitous path of working at a couple of private equity firms and a couple of law firms before taking that skill set, which started in apartments, and transitioning it to buying manufactured housing communities and mobile home parks.
Oh wow. Your first deal, you did it alone or all alone, or you were with a partner?
That was it was myself. I didn't have money. That was a problem. So I had to raise the money. But no, I was the sole sponsor of the first one. That was
Oh
back
wow.
in 2016. I still remember it very vividly. We needed to raise $650,000. I needed to come up with at least 5% to qualify for the loan, and I didn't have anywhere near $32,000. And
And
so
how did you do that?
had I had to borrow from friends, family to try to get my 5% together, and then go out and raise the money from other folks, from other friends, family, let them know, hey, I have this skill set. I've been experienced with this, and the underwriting checks out. I just need funding and I need a shot. And fortunately, I was able to raise money, smaller check sizes, roughly 30 to $60,000 each, and
Mhm.
we bought the first one. 61 space park in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which we still operate today.
No, no, wait. Let me rewind that. Did you raise the full 650,000?
Yes. Yeah.
Whoa.
I had to. I didn't have the money.
Wow, that's crazy. No,
But
that's crazy.
back then you could buy
650,000.
at an 8.5 cap, 8.75 cap for 95% occupied, city water, city sewer, and borrow at around 5.5%. And so the economics of the transaction were very good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you still own that deal, right?
Yes, that's one of the ones I'm currently refining because the guy we purchased it from, did a lot of band-aid fixes rather than fixing things the right way. And so we fixed a lot of it over the years, but now we're doing a much larger water and sewer repipe.
Mm, got him. Hey, again, I wanted to touch with you a little bit because we had an occasion to talk about a portfolio, nice portfolio, and while we were going over it, I haven't we noticed that all those cities were, I guess, a rural market, but they were like 500 inhabitants, 700 inhabitants, and I mean, you were still interested, so I wanted to ask you how it looks like in the say tertiary market for you. How?
So it depends. If it's a tertiary market where we have some sort of presence nearby, we're willing to take a look at it. Um, a couple rule of thumbs, we don't want to house more than about 3% of the population. So if there's 1,000 people there, about 30 of them living in our community, that's fine. But if you have a 100 site park in a
Mm,
1,000 person community, that's just not going to work because when someone moves out, are you going to have the demand for someone else to move in? And so many of those that we looked at were on the smaller end. The aggregate makes sense. And that's where we've found some value is buying several smaller parks in a geographic cluster and getting economies of scale that way without having to pay the much lower cap rate for a larger park by itself.
mm, okay. That's really pretty smart. So right now, what exactly are you going buying? Which market are you? Because I know that you have a big cluster in Wisconsin, and we have basically a smaller one in other markets.
Exactly. Exactly. So we started in Wisconsin. That's where the first one was. We grew from there.
Oh, what about why Wisconsin? I know that you are in California,
It
all
was
right?
just luck. It was dumb luck. And it was an individual I had met. His father wanted to, his father had this 61 space park, 59 occupied, hadn't touched the rents, didn't really fix things the right way, but had a number in mind that he needed to get to be able to sell. And if I could provide that number, he would sell. And at that number, it was an 8.5 cap, which was solid, especially when our debt was 5.5. Back then, the amortization was a little bit worse. It was, I believe it was either 20 or 25-year amortization, but it still cash flowed well.
Mm,
And so that was the first one. After getting the first one and running it for about, I thought I was going to have to run it for a year, maybe a year and a half before I really understood the operation side. It took about 3 or 4 months until we were comfortable. And then we realized, okay, we're on to something. Let's try to find more well located, occupied communities to buy.
mm, got it. Got it. So right now, obviously, you guys are in Wisconsin, big presence in there. And what are the markets?
Oh, I forgot. You asked that. We are venturing further south. We are in the Midwest all the way down to Texas. What we've noticed, and regardless of what you believe the source is, our winters seem to be getting a little bit worse. This last winter, we had more risers crack, more meters crack, even with heat tape, heat cabling. What used to be a cold winter at about 0 degrees might now be -20 or worse. So we're venturing a little bit further south. Um, and we're still in the same model of finding one or two larger communities and then bolting on many smaller ones around it so we can have operational efficiencies. So if you went from Wisconsin and Iowa and just went south, that's that's it. So recent acquisitions have been in Arkansas, Kansas. We've looked at Oklahoma. We've got a community in Texas under contract. Some of those areas.
Mm, got it. So as for infrastructure, you touch a little bit on the part that you guys are doing the sewer line and what exactly are you comfortable with? Every type of obviously city water, city sewer is the best, but right now I guess you guys have experience. What type of infrastructure are you guys do not touch or like it's a deal breaker?
So wastewater treatment plants are expensive to fix and to redo. So we've avoided those. And on the actual infrastructure, we do a deep dive during due diligence. So we check every electrical pedestal to determine what amps we're running. We look for exposed wires, etc. We want to know that we've got at least a 5-year run after we close or after we spend the money to fix it. On the water and sewer, a lot of this stuff has just been patched over the years. Sometimes what we're told is cast iron. Later on, we find out it's Orangeburg. So we had one park that was Orangeburg, just a mess. really expensive to fix. And so now knowing that going forward, if there's an Orangeburg Park, it's not an absolute no, but we are budgeting a full repipe at acquisition.
Mm,
Um, on the sewer, so yes, city water, city sewer is ideal. Wells are very common in rural areas, and so we've got no problem with that as long as you've got someone on site that can do the testing. And then on the sewer side, again, we will avoid wastewater treatment plants. Lagoons aren't an absolute no. They are pretty close to it because most people who operate a lagoon have never dredged it. There's a lot of deferred maintenance on a lagoon that could exist, and that cost is very high.
mm, wow. Eh, as for, I guess your guys are pretty big. How many lots do you have right now?
1,400?
14 or 1400, yeah. That's quite a lot. So I guess you guys are managing, you have in-house programming manager management company, right?
Yes,
Or yeah.
yes.
So I was wondering, now that you're talking about infrastructure, have you guys ever thought about maybe have also some kind of in-house contractor type of thing, or in-house maybe repipe company or
That
something like
that we
that?
haven't explored because typically when you have to do some of these larger jobs, you need to have people that are local. That helps get
Oh,
them done. We have a maintenance supervisor who supervises our larger CapEx items. We've got quite a few. We might be a little bit overstaffed. We've got quite a few people, but everyone has their own roles. But it allows us to be able to add additional units and to make sure things are running smoothly.
why do you think that you guys are overstaffed?
Not necessarily overstaffed, but we've got one person who handles tenant relations. We've got a head of property management. We've got a CFO. We've got a head of finance. We've got one lady, her whole job is to clean up titles, all the
Oh,
abandoned titles, any home sales where the titles weren't done properly. We've gotten better over the years at acquisition to make sure that this isn't quite the problem, but along with a couple other folks on the team.
mm, got it. Got it. And it sounds like you guys prefer more stable property. I'm understanding correctly, or still you guys are doing value add?
We do some value add. We don't do large infill anymore. The cost of new homes continues to rise. Hopefully that goes down with this recent legislation to remove the chassis requirement. But overall, the home price from 2019 to now is higher, and the used home inventory for newer used homes is also thin. So it's harder and harder to organically fill lots than I say it would be, you know, before
Mm,
2020.
yeah, got it. Make it really makes sense. So maybe you guys touch a little bit, maybe just raising rents, but maybe that's it, probably.
Operational efficiencies, we find a lot of homes that are just vacant. And so we'll try to see if we can rehab those. We will bring in homes over time, especially in a state like Wisconsin, but that might only be one, two, three homes a year and might take a while to fill up that community. But once that community is full, then those homes get diverted to a different community that's not full.
Mm, yeah, that's pretty smart. It does make sense. It really does make sense. So I remember when you were in a podcast, you were touching on a particular community that you guys had that has had a lot of delinquency. Delinquency. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
So that one was in Illinois. Again, we took over before COVID. And then during COVID, that was a jurisdiction where we couldn't evict folks. And so, unfortunately, through the rumor mill, it just spread that, hey, you don't have to pay rent. There's nothing they can do. And so our monthly collections went from about 19,000 a month to about 4,600.
Oof.
And naturally,
Wow.
we still had to pay our property taxes. We had to pay our utility bills and our insurance and the loan payment and everything else. And so that was rough for a while. And then naturally, people generated such a large delinquency that even if they had received some stimulus money or they had the money from not paying their rent, by the time the eviction moratorium ceased, they weren't in a position to catch up on their delinquency. And so then
Yeah.
there was a massive amount of evictions in the state during that time. And it was basically like a hard reset. And so then we had to fix up a lot of units, re-tenant them, and we're just now getting back to those 2019, 2020 levels of 18 to 20,000 of gross income.
So, so I'm guessing right now, are you guys exiting Illinois or no? It's still a market
This
that you
particular
guys.
property, it cash flows well because it's city water, city sewer, and everything's direct billed except for the trash. And the main street that bifurcates it is a public street. So you don't even have to pay to snowplow it. So overall, the expenses are down. Um, right now, we're just not as bullish on Illinois as some of the other states. But in this particular city, two of the properties were bought by a big national operator. Another one, the fourth community, operates at a lot rent that's 25% higher than ours. So there's still a lot of room to run.
Got it. Yeah, what I guess you guys have learned a lot of stuff during that delinquency period. Uh, what are the things that right now you guys have changed to, to mitigate that risk? Because at the end of the day, you're still in Illinois, so I guess maybe it's a little bit more difficult to evict those people. So what type of thing are you guys using to mitigate that risk?
It's really being on top of what the local laws are, coupled with making sure you're not over levered, right? A lower amount of leverage so you can withstand some of those blows. So when times get lean, you've got enough extra cash available because the last thing you'd want to have to do is a capital call. Fortunately, we've never had to do one, but that was something that definitely came up as whether or not we're going to have to raise additional capital to simply continue to operate the property.
Mm, right. And as far in the operational side, I mean, okay, you touch on a little bit more of reserve, but maybe as for the quality of the tenants or any adjustment in there, maybe in the type of tenants that you guys getting in.
That's a great question. So one thing we learned, and this was after COVID, we took over a property in Missouri. The rent roll looked amazing, but we never did due diligence on how people were paying rent.
Oh.
Everything else checked out. 51 Site Park, great price, city water, city sewer. Well, everything checked the boxes, except how were all these people paying rent? They were paying rent through the eviction moratorium program. They weren't
Hmm.
actually paying rent through their jobs. And these are inherited tenants that we were getting. And so we didn't run applications on them. And so when that money ran out, that government money ran out, we had a lot of delinquencies there. So that's been
Hmm.
one thing where we've asked, okay, in addition to the rent roll, how are people currently paying you rent? Are they paying cash? Are they paying checks? Are they paying digitally? Or is it assistance?
Oh, oh no. That's a golden nugget right there. I guess if you guys listening to this, that's a really golden nugget in there. Wow. Well, so right now, I guess it's part of your due diligence list. Wow, that's
And that list is always growing, right? We make a lot of mistakes, and along the way, it just you just add another thing to check.
now. Now that you just mentioned capital calls, with the big thing that is happening in the multifamily space with where Brandon Turner is I saw the other day. I guess you were in the multifamily space, so you know better. How do you see the MHP space, and if anything similar to Brandon Turner can touch on this space?
I don't think it was. All right, let me take a step back. I think a lot of what happened in the multifamily space in 2020, 2021, 2022 was the only way for certain operators to be able to buy transactions was to take the current rent roll, annualize it for 12 months, assume they were going to collect every dollar of rent, and then only look at the last 3 months of expenses, annualize that, and now you have an inflated NOI. And on that inflated NOI, they still paid a really low cap rate and assumed that interest rates would stay at the same level. I don't think anyone could have seen how fast the Fed raised interest rates, but that was a very aggressive underwriting approach. I don't
Mm,
I don't believe the same level of stretched underwriting occurred in the MH space as it did in multifamily at that time. Now, I see more and more now where valuations seem very high on the MH side, especially with the tax attributes that a lot of high net worth folks are chasing. But that vintage of 2021, I'm sure there's some on the MH side, but I just don't think there's the same volume as multifamily of the extend and pretend is gone. Now we're going to face either receivership or handing keys back to the lender.
mm. That's pretty interesting because by talking to a lot of buyer, I mean, there's a lot of institutional money that is coming in, and I see a pretty aggressive offer, like uh, really low cap rates offered, obviously those big guys. I'm gonna say, hey, how did you actually underwrite that deal? So I was wondering if it's gonna catch up at some point in the future.
Well, I see it now. I see the same thing you see, where I get outbid quite often. And the downside of that is not just not getting the transaction, but that new operator to justify the underwriting comes in and increases the rents relatively dramatically at closing or within the first month or so before providing any visible value to the tenants. That in turn causes the tenants to be frustrated. They go to their local congressmen or they talk to city council. And that's why in a lot of states you're seeing more and more pushback and more rent control, rent abatement being
Coming
pushed
in.
through, right? And so you don't want to be the last one at the table to, have your rents be stabilized. But at the same time, for some groups, it's okay, hey, we're going to buy it. We're going to jack the rent two, three, $400 right when we close. And we're not going to be the ones left holding the bag if there's rent control because our rents are already redefining what market rent is for the area.
Got it. And what's your approach when you definitely have to pump rent? Uh, because I was talking to who was talking to? I don't remember, but basically his approach like was as soon he got some value in, he's gonna just have the biggest raise, and after that you just gonna have small raises. Like you just want to pull the bandit immediately and have just small
Oh,
pumps.
I see. I see. No, I mean, we've never been that approach because we have, especially operating in the Midwest, where our rents aren't as high as elsewhere, coastal or in the Sun Belt. A lot of our folks are on fixed income, and so we do not want to create vacancy tsunami by just raising
Mhm.
the rent dramatically. Instead, we try to cap it, to a modest amount. It might be 10%, but on a $280 rent, that's 28 bucks, right? And
Yeah.
but they'll see value when we buy the property. It's okay, what are we fixing? We're fixing immediate needs, right? Whether that's roads, uh, pedestals, signage, mailboxes. We've probably spent more in tree work over the last 2 years than most of the operators we bought from spent in their entire ownership.
I can
Um,
imagine.
but a lot of times that's not quantifiable for everyone, but it's some of the things are, whether it's, creating a dog run, repaving a basketball hoop, installing a new basketball hoop. What can we do to make people's lives a little bit better, provide a little bit more value while still charging a reasonable rent? And so for us, the key is, can we be, if we're not the best community in the area, can we be the second best in the area, but at one of the lower rents? So that way we have a high amount of demand and we stay full.
Mm. That's pretty smart. So you just mentioned dog, and this this question just came up. I was is are dogs in particular a deal breaker? A deal breaker, some type of, obviously some type of breed of dogs are deal breakers for you guys?
Well, we try to limit dogs to a certain size and we try to avoid certain violent breeds. But again, as most operators will tell you, a lot of your tenants are just going to get an ESA letter for an emotional support animal. And at that point, there's nothing you can regulate. And so if that animal is a Great Dane or a pit bull, or you pick the breed, and it's providing emotional support, it's allowed to stay and provide emotional
Hmm.
support. I'd say where we normally see issues on the front end of an acquisition is when the prior owner did not require individuals to keep their dogs on a leash. So people would just let them run in the front. Oh, he's fine. He's going to stay right over here in this area. That's a little too dangerous. Or you'll go to some communities where someone might just tie the dog up to the front door and the dog can just
Oof.
run around unsupervised. So we just try to limit some of those items. Supervise your pet, make sure it's on a leash. You want to bring it to the dog run, great, but obviously there's a certain waiver because we can't be responsible if there's five dogs in there and they get in a fight, we can't be liable for someone else's actions.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking because I was looking. Andrew Keogh actually, he published a post a few days ago, maybe a few weeks ago, when he was telling for dogs it's a deal breaker for them, especially for in the insurance side. If an inspector uh come in and see a pit bull or whatever, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. So probably it's gonna be an issue to insure the property, so it's a deal breaker for them. And also, I will see also Garrett Terrell, and he will say the people is just a deal breaker. They're just gonna move on. So I
Mhm.
was just wondering. Uh,
It depends. I've seen it all over the place. That same property in Illinois, we had a tenant who said they needed five pit bulls as their emotional support animals, and each
wow.
one each one did a different function. And so normally we don't push back, but when it gets excessive, then we did push back on the healthcare provider for a little more detail. And then the healthcare provider lessened it to one animal. They basically allowed the tenant to determine what to write as an ESA, which
Mm,
was a little shocking, but nowadays, if you pay for certain services, I'm sure you can get
yeah.
dodgy paperwork like that.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm gonna pass on into the $1 million question. What is something that all people like us, assignment people like us, they do that annoys you a lot? I know that you've been working with a lot of wholesaler and broker, and but what does wholesaler do that, no, that's really annoying?
Annoying.
Yeah.
I guess I will take a step back. I started as a broker, so I just like having conversations with anyone who's on the brokerage or wholesaling side because that means I'm having additional deal flow. Always looking for deal flow. Um, but I'd say annoying, I guess over promising, right? If you don't know, just say you don't know. Don't tell me, oh, the price is this price. They're ready to sign. If you just get me an LOI and you know that that's not the price, you just want an LOI in hand so that way you can start negotiations with the seller. That's maybe that's a minor one, but overall, I love the brokerage community. We pay a lot of finder's fees. You know, we do wholesale transactions. We can close pretty fast, so.
And what about something that kills the relationship on the spot?
I Gosh, I'm trying to think. I think this has only happened once where someone asked us, pushed really fast for an LOI, knowing they didn't want to sell to us, that they wanted to sell to someone else, but to get
Mm,
that group up. So they wanted me to provide an LOI, knowing that they're just going to take that LOI to the other group and tell them, hey, now you're in a bidding war, you've got to offer X to get the property.
mm,
And
mm.
so, at that point, it's wasting time. But you'll still take the risk because what if there's a 1% chance I get it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess right now you're not working with those people anymore.
No, no. But fortunately, I work with a lot of folks, and the brokers I have worked with, I like to think we have a very solid relationship. And like you said earlier when we started this is a small community. So your word matters. If you hold your word and if even if it's good news or bad news, if you're upfront about it, most people understand that.
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, let's touch a little bit on the community because it's I've been talking to a lot of you guys and it's only good people. I mean, buyers are great. I mean, you guys are really busy people, but I mean, it's nice talking to you. It's nice talking to others operators. I mean, I started a little bit in the single family space, a little bit in the multifamily space, but there's no such people. I mean, you always you always find pretty much Jewish in the single family space and in the multifamily space, but I I don't recall that have having a bad experience within the MHP space. Why do you think is that?
And that's a good question. I think it's relatively small. I think a lot of us didn't come from a lot of money, which so a lot of people have a relatively shared common experience of we're going to operate these properties and this is going to be our path to financial freedom. And there's just a lot of solid people in the industry. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, we own a park in Franklin, Wisconsin. Friend of mine owns the park next door. If he has an issue, he just calls me on my cell phone. If I have an issue, I call him on his cell phone. And it's easy. There's
Yeah,
no there's no issues. He's not my competitor, he's my friend.
yeah, yeah. That's crazy. I mean, I never I never saw anything, even in other industry, not particularly, even out of real estate. I never saw such a ecosystem as I was always wondering why is that in this particular space there's such nice people. And I want to touch a little bit on the future, what you see in the future of the image space, but I want to touch a little bit first because I was talking to, I don't know if you know him, but Robert Preston. He's
Hmm.
RV park guy, and he's actually preparing a fund. especially for foreclosure, because there's seen a lot of foreclosure coming up for RV parks. And what do you see coming up for MHP park? Do you see coming in for foreclosure, any foreclosure coming in into the space?
I see stress on the loan side for those loans that are having to reset. Um, when if you had a 5-year loan from 2021, the 5-year was better than it is today. And so a lot of those loans are 5-year fixed, and then you get another 5 years, or it's just a 5-year loan. But overall, in our industry, we've had a decent amount of revenue growth from 2021 to now. A lot of parks that, a lot of areas, it was $200 lot rents. And now most of the Midwest, $400 is pretty reasonable. And so, with that much increase in potential lot rent, I think a lot of those loans will be cushioned. They might not generate as much cash flow, but I don't see them being their total equity wipes that we see on the multifamily side. What I
Mm,
am seeing is just not a lot of supply. I don't see enough supply for the amount of buyers. And so buyers are bidding up those properties that are available. And I
yeah.
see a lot of work for folks like you. If you can find it, there's going to be, for every one or two you can find, there's 5 to 10 buyers that want to buy it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I probably see more. Mm, I mean, because I'm more being in the acquisition side, just because I'm talking to you guys, but yeah, I see a lot of buyers, maybe a little bit less of the inventory. I mean, no, let me just rephrase it. I see still a lot of inventory coming in because uh, our VAs are pulling in at least six lead a week,
Yeah.
6 lead a week in MHP space, 6 lead a week in RV space. So there's still something coming in, but but maybe it's more outside of the buy box, the usual buy box. I just feel like the buyer they should. I feel the best buyer, the one that can adapt a little bit fast because it's not. I mean, the 50 laws, city water, city and sewer are pretty much finished. I feel like there's
Mhm.
not a lot of there. So what I'm trying to say that uh, I'm not seeing fast enough adaptation in the buyer side as far. Okay, let me adapt maybe 20 20 units septic system. I mean, I don't see those. Maybe it's still a deal breaker for them. Too small and all this stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on my side. Uh,
Yeah, that makes sense. I can tell you on the smaller ones, the bigger issue is just if you run into something that's a major issue, there's just not a lot of rent to cover it.
mm,
Whereas the larger the park, the more you can absorb those financial hits. So if you have a smaller one, if it's city water, city sewer, or even city sewer and a well, that's doable. But if you have a small park, let's say 25 sites and it's on a wastewater treatment plant, let's say that hits
that's
the end of its life, good luck.
yeah, good luck. I mean, at that point, you have to change all the system, I guess. Just maybe it's more. What are you gonna do? You have to fix the treatment plant, or are you gonna just plug
There
in
might
the
not be
city water?
much. I mean, you either replace the wastewater treatment plant. If you're still, a lot of those aren't right in the heart of a city. So if you're still on the outskirts, you might not have city sewer there to even connect to.
Hmm,
And so you might not have another option.
that sucks. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that sucks. No, yeah, I can definitely see because right now we're definitely seeing smaller parks. Smaller parks. We see more institutional buyers coming in the 50 range,
Mhm.
50, 40 range. That's what we're seeing. And but yeah, that's what we see in our part. But what do you think is the future of in the next 5 to 10 years, especially with the limited demand, supply? Uh,
I think there's still a lot of properties that are owned by that initial generation. And a lot of those folks are either getting what we see is they're getting older, they might have a health issue, or they might pass and they leave it to the next generation that has no interest in operating a park or mobile home community. And so that second generation just wants the cash. And
mm,
so they want the cash, they're ready to move on. Um, from there, it's just making sure you can get to a place where the finances match for everyone. And because a lot of times these older parks, they just haven't been well maintained. And so you come in there, you want to put on a home on an empty lot, there might be significant amount of upgrades you have to do before that's allowed.
mm, yeah. And what about the building new parks? I know that has been difficult in the US. But do you feel like the quote unquote future, we're gonna see a lot of more buildings, maybe with some new regulation that is gonna make it easier to build new parks?
I think so in areas where they command a strong lot rent, right? If
Mm,
your lot rent in the area is $300, maybe even $400, it might not make sense to build and actually develop a community. But if you're in an area where you can get six, seven, eight, and on up, then it clearly could make sense because you can build a nice community and you can bring in new homes and your customer base can afford it.
mm, yeah, that does make sense. It really does make sense because I was talking to John Evans and was saying that there are in the space there's more parks that are shutting down and just changing to maybe a multifamily development than new parks that are being built. So I was wondering if in the future we're gonna see also the change of the stigma of the MHP. Do you feel that gonna change? Obviously,
I
you guys
think
are.
that's begun. I can tell you, me personally, from when I started in 2016, I went to go raise money, as I told you, and everyone said, "Why are you buying a trailer park?" Right? They didn't even call it mobile home parks. And now it's a lot more understandable. The homes are, you know, beautiful. The new homes
Yeah.
that come out from Clayton, Champion, you name it, very nicely done. And so I think a lot of the stigmas changed. I think where we have a lot of issue is still with local regulations and local governments who prefer low income housing in the form of affordable apartments rather than mobile home parks or manufactured housing. And that's just a stigma that they've had and they continue to have. Whereas our tenant base prefers not sharing a wall, having a yard, and having that autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, I think it's gonna be a real government mental shift. Uh, Hopefully they can allow more new builds. Yeah. Uh, as for so we touched a little bit on the future of mobile home park, and we were talking a lot about your stuff, and I was wondering, as for AI, are you guys using AI in your operation? Is AI helping you guys or?
Slowly, we haven't transitioned enough yet. I think it's still getting built out for a lot of real estate platforms, but we use a lot of digital services. So all of our payments now are digital. Even for the folks that don't like to use a computer, they have a QR code. They can go to retail locations, pay their rent that way. Um, Everything from DocuSign on the leases, just having a digital platform where all their work orders, their tenant payments, their rent charges, and everything can be in a centralized place. That's it there now. I would say the next step is having an AI platform layered on top of that to digest that information and suggest improvements.
Mm,
Okay, this property's always seeming to run into an issue right around here. Or, a common thing that most operators will tell you around March, around February and March, that's where you're going to do a lot of your home sales because people are getting their tax refunds. And so just using some of the data over the years from all the lots to then make more fine-tuned strategic decisions. I see that as being an avenue for growth.
mm. And are you guys already work on it or not yet?
We're slowly working on it. Again, we've got a layer cake of multiple projects. My goal is to always improve, right? Just, the same thing with the due diligence from the mistakes we learned. It's to always be a little bit better than yesterday, the week before, the month before, the year before. And so we're taking that, but we're also using we're using a lot of digital tools for our acquisition side, for our SEO. So that way our tenants can find us. Anything we can do to either better the tenant experience, streamline operations, or improve the property, we're always looking to do.
Mm. Because I was looking at other operators. There's one, Jeff Lynn. He's using it in the due diligence. His thing is doing an amazing job as far. He's using also pictures and is basically AI is connected already to vendors automatically in the area. So that's super cool.
That's awesome.
Um, and also Matthias, oh my God, his last name is German, but basically they do have AI and it's basically calling for collection. So they have a AI that is calling the ten for the collection side. So I was, oh, that's pretty smart. I guess you guys have someone dedicated that is for the collection, right?
So I guess we use a software as a service for that where it's already automated. It's not quite AI, but it triggers certain automated emails and reports to the managers for, hey, so and so hasn't paid, and that's generated on certain days of the month. A little bit different, not quite as intelligent as AI.
Mm, got it. Got it. Yeah, and as far we're pretty much in there at the end. So if someone, what's gonna be an advice for someone, especially like me that is starting, um, what's gonna be the advice for someone that is starting or something that you learned at all? I wish I knew it before.
Um, you have to take the risk, right? So I waited about a year and a half before buying the first one. If I brought that dead deal list to you right now, you would have said every one of those we should have bought, right? Just, based on the price. But, I was really cautious. I wanted to make sure the first one worked. If the first one didn't work, I would never be able to raise money again and there wouldn't be a business. But at a certain point, you have to stop being on the sidelines and you have to take the risk. And from a broker's perspective, I mean, what I used to do occasionally is I would I got my feet wet by rolling some of my fee into the transaction. This assumes you've got enough left over to cover your household expenses. But then that was a good way to get a better understanding of how the operator's operating and then getting a better understanding for just the ownership side.
Got it. Nice, nice, really nice advice. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for staying with me out. Where people can find you if they want to send you any deals in the Midwest of
Yes, they can find me at jason@mhcommunities.com. Or if they have questions or just want to link up, I'm on LinkedIn at Jason Janda.
nice. Thank you so much, Jason, for hanging out with me for over an hour. Yeah, I know for a fact that we're gonna make some money. My dream is coming out of there and digging into operation myself. So for sure,
Yeah,
thank you again for hanging out with me.
definitely. Thank you for having me on. I've been watching your podcast and they're only growing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys again. If you guys want to send deals, I'm gonna leave Jason an email down below. Any wholesaler, any broker, or any sellers definitely. If you guys have a property out there in Wisconsin, Texas, Arkansas, uh, please reach out and have a great one. Peace.
Bye.